Hi guys, I'm running just a little bit late. I was having some technical difficulties, and I need to do one more thing and then I'll be ready to start, but I thought I'd give you guys a minute to find me, and hopefully I am 15 minutes late almost, but some things just cannot be avoided. You want technology to work every time, but it's not always the case. Welcome if you're here. Say hello. I'd love to hear from you guys. Always love to know that people are tuning in and watching the live video. I love having guests in my studio. I hate talking to myself. That's always the worst. Hello, Karen and Anna. Nice to have you guys here. Okay, I think I got it. It feels like a Monday. Anyone else? Just me? Maybe. Yeah, so I'm so glad you guys are here. I'm so glad I made it. I'm so glad I got things fixed. So hi, Kimberly and Brenda. Nice to have you guys. Hope you guys are doing good, and it's feeling so much like spring here, and I'm so excited and ready to start gardening and feeling alive again. Hi, Eddie and Kelly and my dear friend Debbie. Hi, and Barbara and Trudy. Donna, happy Wednesday to you too. And Gina, Patty, Leanne from Texas. Hello, hello. Hi, Lynn. My dear, dear Lynn, I can't wait to give you a hug in person one day soon. Maybe in the fall. Maybe. I'm hoping. So, all right, guys, I have a fun project with Silky beads. For some reason, I want to keep calling them Silkies, but they're Silky beads, and I don't know why they're called Silky, but they are. So let's talk about them for a minute. If you haven't seen the project, hi Julie, nice to have you here. This is the project, and of course, it's going to be knotting with waxed linen because, you know, I'm on a kick. I'm really having fun. This is the kind of project you don't need any tools other than a pair of scissors for. So it's a great project if you guys have little appointments, or, you know, you're sitting through, I don't know if you guys probably don't sit through kids' games anymore. There's probably no sports. But if you just need a little project to take with you on the go, this is definitely one of those that can travel well. So that's really nice. Oh, Karen, I'm distracted by the idea of strawberry patches that have blossoms. I've been drawing strawberries lately and can't wait to taste one in June. You know, the real strawberries, not the ones we get now from the store. All right, enough with strawberry distractions. Let's get to Silkies, right? That's what we want to hear about. So what makes a Silky bead unique is that it's 2 holes. And so I'm going to try to get this in focus for you. All right, camera. Don't focus on my fingerprints. Focus on the bead. There we go. Okay, so you can see the bead, and it has holes, 2 of them, 1 on each side of the point. When you're working with the Silky beads, what you want to remember is that the surface has a raised bar in the middle and then 2 little triangles that are recessed, and so the holes are always going to run in the opposite direction of the bar. So your bar is going this way and your holes are always going to be running vertically. If the holes are horizontal, the bar is running, if the bar is horizontal, the holes are vertical. Yeah, so it's the opposite direction. So when you're playing with these and trying to get the string in, if you're having a hard time, look at your bead and make sure it's turned the right way, because you cannot string it this way. It has to be strung with the bar going horizontal. So big tip, probably the only thing you really need to know about the Silky beads and working with them is that just remember that the holes are the opposite direction of the little bar here, and you can see that raised bar really nicely there. So your holes are going this way, And as you're working, if you can remember that, you'll save yourself a lot of time on trying to stick string where there are no holes. Or the holes are going the wrong direction and you're trying to stick the string in it the wrong way. Now, on the other side of the silky bead is a flat surface. And honestly, I don't see a wrong way to use these. Like, you can use them with the shiny flat side up, or you can use them with the textured side up. Just depends on your preference. There's no right or wrong way when you're working with these little guys. Okay, so the bracelet is very simple construction. We're going to start with the loop with 8mm seed beads, and then we're going to do the stringing on two strands. And I have a Humblebeads disc in the middle and a pewter button on the end, and these ones are copper plated, which my favorite little leafy button. So the silky beads are super fun, and I love how they nestle together. Here's one design that I've been working on. Haven't finished it yet, but you can do simpler stringing with them and string them in a row. You can also just string them as they are on the strand, so you can see how they nestle together up and down. So that makes a cool bracelet. These work really well for stacking bracelets too, if you like to stack a bracelet and wear a big hunk of bracelets all at once. All right, let's get to the project now that I've kind of walked you through it. I'm going to do this cobalt blue color because I have the cornflower example, which was on the kits that I had. I think they're all sold out, guys. I will be able to put a few more of these dark blue ones up after the video here, but I think there may have been one left, but they sold out pretty quickly yesterday, so I'm sorry about that, but it's just the way it goes. And then of course this is the lilac, purpley, I don't know what color you want to call it. It's a very dusty purple, and I love it. Actually matches my shirt really well, so that's the one I'll be wearing today. All right, on to the blue. I am using brown, the walnut brown, 2-ply wax linen. And this has already been, what do I want to say? It's been polished already. So to polish your wax linen, and I forgot to bring a piece, you just take a paper bag and fold it over and rub your, I just have a little piece of craft paper here that I could use just to show you. Okay, so polishing the wax linen will help your small beads go on there quicker, but also helps it for getting them, so there's not wax buildup. So you're going to take it between a piece of brown paper bag and just pinch tightly and pull it through. And you can do that 1 or 2 times, and that is going to polish the wax linen, and you will have much better results with it. So just a little FYI. All right, I have these 8mm seed beads, and these are in a kind of a light bronze tone that I thought matched really well with my metals here. I cut 36 inches of this, so this is 1 yard of the 2-ply wax linen, and you're just going to have to be tortured with me stringing on 20 of these little beads. Sorry, there's no fast way to do these ones because we're not working with a needle or anything that would quickly pick up the beads, since the wax linen is so lightweight. And the reason we're using 2-ply wax linen is because it goes through the holes on the silky beads much easier. You will kind of torture yourself if you try to use the 4-ply. So you definitely want to use the 2-ply wax linen. And on my website, all the 2-ply wax linen has a big banner across it that says 2-ply, so that you won't get confused and order the wrong one. And we have it in several different colors. I picked the brown because I just wanted it to kind of recede into the background. I didn't want it to be a design element. I just wanted it to be kind of a structural part of the design and not necessarily a design element, if that makes sense, if you know what I mean. If you don't have little 8mm seed beads, you could use smaller seed beads and get the same results. You could also use like peanut seed beads, and you'll have a little bit of a chunkier loop, but those would work too. You could use really teeny tiny little spacers if you don't have seed beads at all. Okay, so if you're using a button other than, I think this may be too many. If you're using a button other than this little leafy one, what you want to do is make sure that your button will easily slide through, but not too much room. So I think I actually have too many beads here. I thought I counted out 20, but I could totally be wrong. So all right, just one too many. And now I'm going to pull these down to the center of my thread. So I want to have these in the loop on the center of my thread. I'm going to move all this out so you can see what I'm doing. And now I'm going to take one side of this strand. Sylvia, you can use that tip of polishing your wax thread on any wax thread, yes. Okay, so I'm taking the end, one side, it doesn't matter left or right, and I'm going to thread it through my beads, through all of them. So you're just gonna put the two pieces of wax cord together and then push the beads on there. And you don't have to worry about them staying in the center right this second, because we're going to move them around so they're back in the center before we tighten things up. Okay, so just want to make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. So just looping one end of the thread back through all of the beads so that we can create a nice steady, I mean not steady, but sturdy loop of beads for our clasp. If we just used one thread, I would be a little afraid that it might break. And this way we double our reinforcement. And I feel much more secure about that in the design. Okay, twist them together, pinch them together to get those beads on. Almost got it. You guys should all be cheering. Heather, Heather. Feeling goofy. Okay, now I'm going to start pulling this end, and I'm taking my two ends here and making sure they are pretty close to matched up so that these are going to be in the center. And now I'm going to pull on each side to tighten this. So I'm pulling on the end of my thread to tighten it up. And now once I get to this part, I'm just going to pull on one side until I get it nice and tight. Oh, I guess two. Okay. So the two ends are meeting. It's as tight as it's going to get. And so I'm going to take both of these threads, wrap it around my finger, and just tie a simple knot here. Make sure you push those threads together and down to get a nice tight knot. And just using my fingers to tighten that knot up. And that is the loop that we're going to do on our bracelet. Patty, you could try. I don't know how easy it would be to thread the needle with the wax linen, because it kind of frays if it's not going in the right direction. It has to be kind of turned in the right direction, but I am all for giving it a try. What you could do is you could put a little glue on the end and stiffen them up. So that is a great question. Thank you for asking. And if you guys have other questions, feel free to put them in the comments and I will definitely answer them, hopefully as I see them, but if not, I will go back through and answer them. Okay, I have some little 5x7mm faceted glass beads and some bicone copper spacers. Now, don't get caught up in the spacers that you're using. Like, let me see. I offer these in the shop, which are the little faceted, come on camera, there we go, the little faceted copper beads, and these would work just as well. I just grabbed the bicone because those are the ones that I had. Actually, these would probably work a little easier because the hole's a little bit bigger. And so if you don't have the little bicones, which are a little harder to source, you can get these ones at humblebeads.com, and we have those in silver and copper. So we're going to start with one of the 4mm spacers, and I'm going to actually put it on both of the threads. So I'm taking the threads, pinching them together and giving them a little twist so that they'll stick together a little bit. And you're going to stick on your bead. So I have, oh, I did that wrong. I did like, I don't know, 5 or 6 different patterns of this design, trying to come up with the perfect one. And so let me make sure I stick with the pattern that I decided was the best, which is going to start with the 5x7mm faceted bead onto both threads. So we're putting the 5x7mm faceted bead, which is a really pretty little bit of sparkle. And now I'm going to separate the cords, and we're going to put the spacers one on each cord. Just like that. And now we're going to take our silky bead, and I'm going to put my 2 little pieces of thread together, well, like this, so it will be easier to go on my bead. And you want to make sure you're putting your holes the opposite direction, putting your thread the opposite direction of that little bar. So there's a little bar on top of your bead, and the holes are going in the opposite direction of that bead. And I'm going to slip that on. And now I'm going to tie a knot. So this is going to be our first little cluster of beads. So we have the faceted, the two spacers, and then the silky bead. And we're going to tie a simple knot. Every knot that I use is going to be exactly the same on this bracelet. And after I show you guys the first little cluster, I'm just going to try to whip through it as quickly as I can. All right. Okay. Now I'm going to start with another silky bead, and I'm going to put 1 bead through both holes, both strands. And instead of pulling this all the way down, it's easier if you just do the whole little cluster together at once, so that you don't have to keep checking and making sure your beads haven't accidentally gone the wrong direction. Because it's very easy to flip these around and have the smooth side facing up instead of down, which is what I want, is the smooth side facing down. So that is going to be our cluster right there. And then we're going to put one spacer on on both of the strands. Maybe. Sorry. One of the reasons I am not... What I do is I go through each of these and poke a head pin through to make sure that there's none of the antiquing finish on them, because that can kind of make them a little bit harder to get the bead through. Okay. So I'm pushing these all the way down. I'm going to make sure this is centered right there, so it's centered on the thread, and then I have the two, so I have one on both strands, then one bead on each of the strands, and then this little, oh, there's a little bit of wax, this little spacer is on both of the threads. And I'm going to push those all together tightly, and I'm going to do a knot on top of the spacer bead. Really bothers me that I see a cat hair on my hand. My little kitten likes to climb up here. Okay, now I'm going to repeat the pattern but going in the opposite direction. So this one, you have to take your time for a second. Separate your threads. And you want to make sure that you're putting your bead going in the right direction so that your little bar is facing on the top. And I am going to pull this one down all the way just to make sure I did it. Okay. Whew. Okay, now untwist these. That would be good. And so basically we're just ignoring the hole on one side and using only one hole on the beads when they're in this little cluster like this. Oh, and I did that wrong. Oh, okay. If it's the opposite, we're going to start with 2 and end with 1. That would be the opposite, Miss Heather. Go back to school today. By the third little cluster, I'll be a pro. Hopefully. No promises. Human at work. Okay, now I'm going to tie a knot. And I want to make sure that knot is nice and tight. A little trick, if you have a hard time with knots, you can use a bead reamer or a knot tool and put it right here and then pull on the knot, and that will make it a tight little knot. I am not very well versed at it, so it takes some practice, but that's a little tip for you if you want to try that if you're having a hard time with knots. Okay, spacer bead, I mean not spacer bead, the faceted bead on both strands. So when you get your kit or you're sitting down with your beads, watch me get to the middle before you start, so that you have a good idea of the pattern. Just a little helpful tip there, guys. Okay. Now I'm going to start with one bead, and it's going to help to separate these. I'm going to grab my 3 beads and put them on. So I'm doing a point this time, so I want both of the strands to go through the bead. And now one on each side. And then in the middle of these, you're going to stick on the spacer. That's the one that... And I'm going to push these all down, making sure this is nice and even at the tip here on both of the threads. Okay, and now I'm going to push those all down really tightly and tie another knot. Hi guys, that are just joining. Thanks for joining me. All right, now I'm going to separate these. If you have a macrame board or a clipboard, it might make this a little easier. It's a little harder for me to use the board and film, so just, you know, that might make it a little easier to handle if you weren't trying to wrestle the strings quite so much. Okay, so now I'm going to put one on each side. And one bead on both of the strands, and then I'll be tying a knot. Phantom holes, those are always fun. Where you think you've strung it through a hole and then you realize it went nowhere. Okay, so you want these to be nestled nice and tightly next to your little spacer here. Wrap it around. And these silky beads, there's so many different ways you guys can use them, and just play around with all the different ways you can string them together. I love how they nestle together. It makes it really fun for designing. Okay, I'm going to do another. Oh, we're to the center now. So what I'm going to do for the center is I'm going to do the faceted bead on both holes. Then I have 2 bead caps that are 6mm. So I'm going to string those on next. And then my disc bead, and this is one in my branch style. I always have these in stock. I just make them every week. They're one of my staples. So you'll always be able to find these little disc beads in stock. And another spacer. And I'm going to pull these down nice and tight with my knot and tie a knot. Now I'm going to just do these without a lot of talking, because you've already seen it, and I just want to whip it out as quickly as possible. So Angela, if you, the Silkies, they're just really fun to work with. If you're a little, someone was calling me. So I forgot to put my phone on. Do not disturb. Yeah, so you could totally start with just a little tiny cluster and make an earring out of it and give it a try. You could also do that just to match your bracelet, you guys. Okay, now we want to do a point, so I'm going to start with one bead, then one on each side. Spacer in the middle. You want to make sure everything is nice and tightly pushed down and even on each of the sides of the thread. You don't want one thread to be off kilter, or your beads off kilter on one thread. Now we're going to separate this. And do one on each side, because we're mirroring the pattern. And for these ones, I'm going on the inside hole, not the outside one. And now I'm going to do one bead on both strands. Push them down really tightly. Make sure they're even, and tie a knot. Now we're going to do the faceted bead, because we're at the middle point on the other side. Then we're going to do one more cluster. And this bracelet actually whips up much quicker if you're not talking your way through it. So it's a quick, easy project. Super easy because no tools are required. It's a great project for beginners or someone who just wants a fun little half an hour project to whip up. So I have the 3 beads. I'm doing the point, so I have 2 strands through one bead, and then each of the beads on one strand. And now I'm going to do my little spacer, and then it will be time to tie the knot. So I want to make sure that first bead is in position on the wax linen so it's in the middle of both of those threads evenly. It's really important. Okay, nestle those together nice and tight and tie a knot. Okay, now I'm going to do one more. Now for sizing, this bracelet is 8.5 inches long. So if you want a smaller bracelet, you can eliminate the beads that I'm going to do at the end, or you can do less of the beads so that it's not quite so long. I like to make things that will actually fit me. And so I usually make my bracelets 8.5 inches. Most common is 7 to 7.5, so. Okay, I'm going to push that down nice and tight so it's all nestled together. And I'm going to tie my knot. Okay, now I'll just show you. On this one, I just stopped right here, and this bracelet is pretty short. Let's see how big it is. So this one is 6.5 inches, 6 inches. So you would, if you need 7 inches, you would definitely want to add at least a few of these. Probably not, you probably wouldn't need to do the next silky bead, but you could do the two spacers and one faceted bead to make it a little bit shorter. Also, just FYI, a strand of silkies will only get you this much. It doesn't include the little extra part right here. I got those from a second strand, so if you you could use just any other little bead right here. You could use a rondelle, a slightly larger one, or whatever little bead you want to do at the end, so that you wouldn't have to get a second strand of the silky beads. So that's just a little note for you. The kits are this pattern right here with all of the beads. And so just want you guys to be aware of that. Okay. I'm going to put the last silky bead on. And then the 2 copper spacers on each side on a single strand. And then on both of the strands, I'm going to put the faceted bead. And when I'm going to go through both strands on one bead, I just put them together and twist them, and that will help you get them on a little bit easier. Oh yes, Lynn, or you could add more humble beads on the end. I don't know if it would be too chunky, but you could definitely play around with that. Okay, so I'm going to tie my knot, and then I'm going to be ready to put on my button. I'm going to separate these two. Oh, actually, I'm going to do 2 knots together. So I did 1 knot. Now I'm going to do 1 more knot before I put on my button. Just gives me a little space in between the bead and the button. Okay, I'm going to separate these cords. And I'm going to stick my button on facing up, and I'm going to take the right side and put it through the left hole and run the left string through the right one. Pull those down nice and tight. So I'm pulling both of those nice and tight so that there's no space in between. And now I'm going to repeat that 2 more times. And this will give us a nice secure connection for our button. Pulling nice and tight each time so that your button is on there really secure. Okay, so you can see it's on there quite a few times, wrapped on there, and I'm going to turn it upside down, and I'm going to tie these 2 strands together nice and tightly. Make sure it's on the bottom of the knot, not on top of the knot. Okay, tie that nice and tight, and now I'm going to take these 2 strands and wrap them around to the other side of the button. Not the other side of the button, but the other side of the faceted bead here, or the cord. And I'm going to tie that again. And I'm turning it over and tying again. So just wrapping it around the cord and tying a knot. And I'm going to do that 3 times. And that just gives me a really nice, secure, tight connection. And now I can't find a pair of scissors. They've all wandered off. So I'm just going to use my little cutters and trim. And I like to leave a little string. It's just my personal preference. You could cut it shorter if you wanted to. And so here is my finished design. When you put it on, you can flip those little beads around if they've twisted from one side to the other, because each little cluster likes to twist around. Okay, that's it. Finished project. All right. Your cat's mesmerized. Your cat's just in love with me, Lynn. All right, guys. That is it for today. So hopefully you enjoyed this project. When you get your kit, watch through one time till I get to the middle so you can see the pattern clearly. And also you'll be able to see the photo. I'll have the photo with the video on my blog. So if you go to humblebeads.com, there's a tab for my blog, and you can go back through and see all of the past Bead Table Wednesday projects with the video and a supply list, and then a link to the beads that you can get at humblebeads.com. All right, guys, so I started a new thing last week where I did a little coffee break, and so I'm going to do that again at 3 o'clock on Friday. So 3 o'clock on Friday, we're going to get together here for a little coffee break, and I'm going to share with you what I have new in stock and any restocks, and just talk about my favorite beads that are in the shop each week. So that's going to be on Fridays at 3 p.m. And that will be just a short, quick video, just sharing some eye candy and inspiration. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Cat for adornments, we're finishing it up really soon. We are still working in the background. It takes a lot to get everything together when it's not just one person, but a whole team. So very soon, though, because it's almost May, and we want to get you guys taken care of. Lauren, you're going broke. I love you. Thank you so much. If it makes you feel better, Lauren, you can just tell people you're a patron of the arts. So you're not just bead shopping, you're a patron of the arts. If that makes it any easier. All right, guys. thank you so, so much for joining me. You have a great week, and I will see you on Friday. Cindy, you can watch the replay as soon as I'm done. You can watch the replay anytime and watch the whole video over again. All right, guys, thank you so, so much. Enjoy some sunshine today. Hopefully it's green where you are. You can enjoy the spring. All right, guys, I'll talk to you later. Thanks for joining me so much. All right, bye.